Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So for today we're going to be reading chapter 14. And this is going to be my last post until next Monday. So I hope you guys enjoy. Let's get started. Chapter 14. No matter how many people he thought of, not once had he had this damn giddy feeling with them. Bakugo wasn't stupid. He knew what he was feeling. He just wouldn't accept it. Why would he? They both are going to get soulmates. They aren't going to be each other. So why should it matter? It'll brush off soon. Since he was going to get his own mark tonight and Izuku already got his, Bakugo felt a bit at ease as he thought of Izuku's mark. It was probably not red. It was most likely brown. Bakugo thought, a deep hole being dug out of his heart. Yeah, probably brown. Uraraka's probably his soulmate. Her mark would kinda match, right? He could. How could it match though? Whoever Izuku's soulmate is, the mark would be astonishing. At least that was Bakugo's guess. But it is green, so that at least matches. Whoever Izuku's soulmate is, the mark would be astonishing. At least that was Bakugo's guess. But it is green, so that at least matches. But Izuku isn't the only one with green eyes. Ugh! Bakugo yelled suddenly, pinching the bridge of his nose. Izuku jumped in surprise, finding himself subconsciously covering his face with his arms, allowing his sleeve to slip down, revealing the reopened gash he had infected with his fingernails for the past few minutes. Bakugo saw this in the corner of his eyes and frowned, feeling a weight being added on his shoulders. He shouldn't be caring about this. Look at him. The poor greenette looked so heartbroken, so deep in his own dark abyss. He was shaking still. Bakugo lowered his hand and took a glance at the road before glancing back at Izuku. How did those cuts not burn like hell? Bakugo had cut once in his life. That was a dark part in his life, and he wasn't in the best state of mind back then. But he still remembered the burning pain that went shooting up his arm just from a small pincher. The boy next to him had gashes that went at least a few centimeters deep and wasn't even acting like it affected him, not to mention the mix of dried and oozing blood that was set on top of them. Running down his shirt, how did he act so calm all the time, when this is what he was lying under with just millimeters of fabric? Bakugo had to admit that he was a tiny bit impressed, but his burning feeling in his gut quickly rushed this feeling out. Bakugo glanced back at the road, taking a mental note to ask the doctors for bandages. Hey Deku, Bakugo began, trying to sound as casual as possible. The freckled teen murmured, nodded and gulped, removing his bloody arm from his face and continued to scratch at them. Don't those hurt? Bakugo finished clicking his tongue as he watches Izuku go back to opening more cuts. Izuku froze, slowly glancing at his arms before looking away from the gruesome view. Well, kinda, Izuku answered. His bloodshot eyes dropped down to his shoes. Another way for Izuku to fight off his ever-growing anxiety. Kinda? What the fuck does that mean? How could those only kinda hurt? Bakugo grumbled. Izuku removed his hands from the cuts and instead beginning fiddling with the black bandages that he still had placed on his wrist. Instead beginning fiddling with the black band that he had placed on his wrist. I guess, Izuku gulped. I kinda used to it. It's by now. I guess, Izuku gulped. I'm kinda used to it by now, he whispered in the silent car, his eyes beginning to create more tears. Bakugo flinched at his answer and looked sidelong at the young teen. Why? He suddenly asked, catching the Grana off guard. Izuku scratched the back of his head. After a while, I kinda got used to the pain. He finished, looking out the window in embarrassment. For some reason, the team believed that cutting was a sign of weakness, and he was embarrassed that he had scooped so low that he began showing people just how weak he was. He would even deal with his father without having to take out his stress on his arm. This is the real reason he was so protective of covering his arms. He was covering up one of his so-called signs of weakness. Izuku thought he was so weak, so utterly incapable of protecting people. He believed that he couldn't protect his own mother. He couldn't protect anyone else in the world. If anything, he thought he didn't qualify to protect people. His mother used to tell him stories of how happy she was with his father. However, they all stopped soon after Izuku was born. It was all his fault that his mother wasn't happy. It was his fault that she was going to die. She was going to die because of him, because his frail body couldn't protect the most treasured thing in his life. It was his fault that his father unleashed his anger on her. It truly was. In Izuku's eyes, at least. Izuku was a mistake, a letdown, a murder. A fucking murderer. It screamed in Izuku's mind, and he began to feel dizzy. Deku! Bakugo screamed, for at least the 15th time. He had watched Izuku's face become white and his pupils shrink. He saw as he began to sway side to side, tears falling down his cheeks and landing silently on his lap. Izuku finally snapped out of the dark trance and locked his eyes with Bakugo. Bakugo, breathing hitched, and he stared back, both dumbfounded and surprised at the same time. How can the eyes convey such a wordless emotion? It was almost like someone had taken away Izuku's last string of hope and was left feeling ashamed and terrified. So many deep emotions were swimming in Izuku's emerald eyes that seemed to still be slightly glazed. Emerald eyes that seemed to be still slightly gazed over by whatever he had been thinking about just moments before. The teen nodded, glancing back down at his wrist, wishing that he could have cut deeper last time. Bakugo gulped, terrified of whatever Izuku was thinking. I thought I lost you there, he whispered, staring at the road, only taking quick glances at Izuku in the passenger side. He heard Izuku whisper, and it made Izuku's chest ache. I wish you did. The young boy breathed, barely even audible. Bakugo didn't even hear it, but in the silent car he had just barely picked up on it. He gulped again, not sure how to respond to that. It was obvious that Izuku wasn't in the right state of mind before, but seeing it was like this was just horrifying. Kosuke Bakugo was almost never scared. Almost. He still had his fair share of being scared, but it only came briefly, and was almost not even noticeable. However, seeing Izuku like this was scary. He had always known Izuku as an iterating, light-hearted boy who never gave up, but it seemed like the ray of sunshine finally hit rock bottom. Bakugo stopped his trail of thought as he heard a light snap. He looked over at Izuku and noticed the boy was playing with his black band again, pulling it back then releasing. Doesn't that sting? It sure did. That's exactly why Izuku was doing it. But instead of thinking that dark, Bakugo thought a simple thought. Maybe his soulmate will be able to help him. Bakugo clenched his shirt as he felt A stinging burst in his heart. Damn it, this really needs to stop. He can't feel bad for himself right now. Next to him is a broken person, he said again. Why did feelings have to be so fucking complicated? The rest of the car ride was silent, only the subtle snap of Izuku's band every now and then. They finally drove into the visiting parking lot outside of the hospital. Both of the boys sat for a second, gathering themselves for what's next to happen. They had to say that last goodbyes to Inka Midoriya, the mother of Izuku Midoriya, and friend to the Bakugo's family. Okay, guys, that was the end of chapter 14. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next week. Bye!